Hey folks, it's Tom, your Frugal Prepper. I want to talk a little bit about pruning tomato plants and what the difference is between a branch and a sucker and what the growing tip is. And, I do the Mittleider gardening method, so we prune off all suckers and grow a single growing tip up the string. Um, Now, these are indeterminate plants only that you'd want to do this for. Determinate tomato plants um, will set a lot of suckers and grow out and bush out, and then they'll bloom and set fruit and ripen that fruit pretty much all at once. Indeterminate plants continue to grow and grow and grow throughout the season and produce more and more fruit and ripen it as they go. So you get fruit throughout the season instead of all at once with an indeterminate. And typically, your indeterminate plants are going to be cherry tomatoes and slicing tomatoes, and your determinate plants are going to be like your Roma type tomatoes or pasta tomatoes. Um, there's exceptions to that rule because there's 100,000 different varieties and types of tomatoes, but that's just a generalization. So I want to talk about what a sucker is. Um, so uh, let's see. You see this thing right here coming off of the main stem? This big long thing with the leaves? That is a branch. That is not a sucker. Okay, that is not the part that you prune off. That's the part that's giving photosynthesis to the plant to help it grow and make fruit. Okay, the part that we prune off is called a sucker, and you can see there's actually a tiny little one starting right here. Okay, but if we look, here's one that I've missed that's gotten way too big. So we see right here is the branch, here is the sucker in the middle that has grown out, and there is the main stem. And so when that started, it would have been a little teeny weeny guy like that. Okay, and then a week goes by and you miss it, and it turns into that. And you typically don't want to let your suckers get this big. One is that it causes stress to the plant when you prune this thing off. And two is it's put a lot of energy into that where it would have grown the main stem instead. That's why some of my tomato plants are taller than others. So I'm just going to go ahead and prune that. And you see that this sucker is like a whole new growing tip. So the growing tip of your tomato plant is right here. It's the part that's growing new stuff up, setting new branches. Okay, and what we do is we wrap that. This is a good example. We wrap that around, and we keep that growing tip going up at the string, and it'll continue to just set new flowers and fruit on the way up. Um, every 6 inches or so, we'll have some more flowers and more fruit. Um, This you could actually take and stick it down in the soil, water it real good for a few days, and it will grow roots and it will turn into a new tomato plant. Um, it'll grow roots anywhere you see those little hairs coming out. So if you want to clone tomato plants, if you have a long growing season, you can do that. Like if you live in Texas or somewhere down south. Here, by the time I got this one healthy, it would be coming in really late for the season. So I don't clone tomato plants. Um, I got my plants this year from a local farm, like nursery, and I had $8 in the cantaloupe and $11 in the peppers and tomatoes. So, less than $20 for all these plants. You can't beat that. If all you got's one of those little Bonnie's vegetable stands, then you might want to think about starting your own plants or cloning, because you'll save yourself some money. The other thing we want to do is we see like where these two branches are overshadowing each other. This is something we also take care of with pruning. We don't need to prune the whole branch, but we can come down here and cut some of these leaves, and you can cut the leaf right in half, just like so, and split the difference so that they're not overshadowing each other. That way the plants aren't competing for that sunlight. They're both getting an equal amount of the sunlight. And so that's another thing that we do with pruning. But we see here this branch is hanging kind of way over in to this guy. So I'm going to prune, if you can see this leaf here. And let's see what we got here. We've got this little branch coming out where it set these fruit. So I'm going to go ahead and prune that guy. a little. Really, I might just go ahead and take this. It's hard to do this and show you. Probably go ahead and take this leaf off right there. I have to learn to look through the screen at what I'm doing so that you can see it too. He's still kind of rubbing over there. So this may be a candidate just to remove this whole branch right there. To keep these plants from competing with each other. And I know it seems like, oh, I'm killing my plant, but the truth is, the more you prune tomatoes, the better they produce. The other word of caution is if you accidentally break off or prune your main growing stem, you're going to have a problem. So what I typically try to do is, you see how I have this little sucker growing out right here? I won't pinch him off yet. I will leave him until my next pruning on Saturday. In case something did happen to this growing tip, he will become my new growing tip. So there's another one growing out of this spot right here that could become a growing tip. I'll leave those real tiny ones in case something happens to my main growing tip. Because if you break off this main growing tip and you don't have any suckers, your plant is done. So, I can always take that string and move it over to that other sucker and make it my new growing tip going up. But that's all you do, is you just go down all the way down through the tomatoes here, and you do that. And I do that this time of year about twice a week. After they get bigger and they're a little higher up, I'll have to do a little less pruning. I might only do it once a week. But right now, this is going to be a twice a week thing. So, but again, your determinate plants, you don't prune those. You let them go or you will not get much of a harvest. All right, that's all I have for now, folks. This is Tom, your frugal prepper.